Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Coach Timmy and today I'll be bringing you a first installment of the new series on my channel. So if you enjoy the video, let me know in the comments, tell me who you want me to do next, and remember to subscribe. This video will be a breakdown of Benjyfishy, Matzo, and Amplify's FNCS semi-finals games from this weekend, where they finished with 100 points in 53rd place, 20 placements and 11 points off the qualifying threshold. So without any more waffle, let's have a look and find out why this team was on the brink. Firstly, we need to go over some of the positive things about this team because I think it's important to frame the places a team needs to improve with some strengths that they can work around. So the first thing that I really liked about this team was the actual rotation choices, where they were getting themselves on the map relative to certain zones was actually genuinely impressive, and it showed some really good mid-game nous and really good leadership. There was also a really positive way that they looked to push teams who landed north, where they had a huge loot advantage over them. This was something that they actually scouted on drop. If you go back and watch Benji's stream, you can hear him saying there's teams north, let's look to push them. They pushed and killed teams here 3 times out of 10 games, and that ensured Surge was sorted and it gave them a couple of easy kill points, so that was something that's really positive as well. Another couple of cool things about this team and the way these guys set themselves up is the way that they arrange themselves prior to fighting. They always make sure there's multiple angles on one single players, and then there's a well-timed collapse on the remaining team members once that first player is cleaned up. And also another important thing to note is that from Pleasant they get all gold ARs, all purple ARs and all purple shotguns. So it's really strong POI, but I think that is where we can get into some of the improvement points for this trio. So let's discuss some of those. I mentioned spawn last there because I think the spawn fighting issue is something that is actually worth discussing. I'd take these guys in a fair fight over basically anyone, but when you're 50-50ing a house, that's not exactly a fair fight. The 50-50 for the God Chest is not exactly a strategy that will win you semis. In this round, they died off spawn 3 times, and it honestly probably should have been 4 if it weren't for some French 2 HP miracle. The forced 50-50 off spawn should be something that haunts them from semis to semis if some of the late game problems we'll discuss later aren't fixed. In games 9 and 10, we actually saw them swap their drop from that aggressive 50-50 to disengaging out of Pleasant, and then in game 10 they actually landed Slurpee. So in game 9 they were happy to patiently loot and get their mats up and everything over time. In game 10 they just disengaged entirely and went down to Slurpee instead of landing there. This shows me that they're aware of how unhealthy the 50-50 is for their qualification and their consistency, but by games 9 and 10 it was too far gone, and the consistent late game issues that we saw crop up prevented them from making it past top 7 all day. So if you can't get past top 7 with the current placement format that we have, it's really difficult to hit those those really high levels of points per game. So let's get into some of the mid-game stuff that I think they needed to improve on. Now, with mid-game, I said earlier that I was actually really impressed with the positioning aspect. So these guys show really good awareness of dead side and how to get there consistently. So I'm not actually going to be going over and breaking down where they should have gone and why for improving positioning, but I will have a little chat about game planning and tournament awareness. FNCS is where the big dogs come out to play. So especially in Europe and these big regions like that, even if you have skill advantages over people, if there are only 250 teams in the tournament, the level of those players is extremely high. I say this because I truly believe that their mentality was entirely wrong going into games 1 through to 7, where they believed they were way better than everyone there and that they could take any fight that they wanted to against anyone. At this level, that confidence is admirable, but it will ultimately lead to your downfall. And in game 7, we saw them took a storm fight against Tayson, thinking it would be a bot team in a bot lobby coming out of Sweaty. And in game 3, they looked for a fight for nigh on 10 minutes, all the way from leaving Pleasant, rotating up to Flopper Island, going through the Spire, and then coming all the way back down to Colossal Crops, leading to their eventual death about 15 minutes into the game. Having the wherewithal to know when to stop the pressure and search for kills is extremely important for an IGL to master, especially at the high elo and high tier lobbies that you'd expect in these EU or NA East stacked tournaments. This would be something I'd really like to see Benji and his team improve on for next week, so that they aren't having to make that ground up early after only accumulating 42 points over 6 games due to some poor decisions and some tough spawn fights. Now, again, think of the context. If you're fighting off spawn consistently, it is so much more important that you make the most of the games that you have off spawn, and due to that, these decisions to fight or to leave become about 10 times more important. Anyway, that's all I have to say about their mid-game. Again, I think the main issues were to do with mentality and looking for fights where they didn't necessarily need to. So let's get into some of the late-game stuff and why I think they really struggled to finish those games off. Now, with any review that I do, like I've said, I really try and get some context behind everything that I'm looking at. So I think it's really important to preface these late game criticisms with some positivity. So generally, the layering is actually really good. Whoever is tarping tends to transition between vertical and horizontal spaces really nicely. They are constantly setting themselves up into really good spots to make refreshes and tarping easy for following zones. However, there are always mistakes that can be made if the pure fundamentals aren't down perfectly, and this was a perfect example of small mistakes costing a team a qualification. The small mistakes all led to them falling behind zone on low ground, the worst place to be in the lobby, but it went to show how perfect your fundamentals have to be to put together a consistent game and on low ground at this sort of high level. So just to go through some of their last games, Game 3, there was a lack of awareness from the players back tarp and closing it off solidly, and they were snuck up on by a team in the back of their tarp who didn't actually kill any of them, but again, it stopped them from getting ahead and got them focused back on low. Game 7 was another example of the arrogant I'm better than you mentality. I think Benji jumped in on a refresh without any of his teammates on him, leading it to him and then his teammates going down. They were followed up on and held behind zone yet again. Game 8, the replay desyncs, so I actually can't work out how, but again, they find themselves in between two teams. They're not ahead, they're not establishing a layer as they should be, they go down back zone. Game 9 was one of their games where the mentality had changed, so after Game 7, Benji ended a stream and you can see their mentality shifts. They are no longer jumping in, they're no longer really trying to fight kids aggressively. This was one of their games where that mentality had changed, and it actually leads to a negative outcome in a passive sense. They didn't go for the refresh when they really needed to. They had no mats on low ground back zone. They go down again. Game 10 was a little bit different, so I can't really lump it in with all of those ones. They lost high ground basically due to having no AR ammo to pressure off second height. But what I can see there, Game 3, Game 7, Game 8, and Game 9, little mistakes that are constantly leading them to be focused back zone. And what I think the biggest takeaway from that is that it is so important to make sure that if you're playing this kind of style, your fundamentals and those critical decision making in small time windows has to be on point. And I think learning those basics such as refresh timing, how and when to block your tarp off, where to control space and when, it is all so important to consistent success for a low ground team, and it makes the success of players like Centered Commandment and Edgy, Speedy, Looter and Muzz all so much more impressive and admirable. So anyway guys, that's my breakdown of why this team was on the brink. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to let me know in the comments. Remember to subscribe and turn them notifications on, and like this video for more. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.